I wasn't supposed to take the job. That's the truth. I'd already promised myself I was done with night work, done with empty buildings and security cameras and the quiet that makes your own breathing sound suspicious. But I was behind on rent. My car needed repairs, and the staffing agency called with an easy overnight. One shift to cover a front desk at a business hotel near the airport. No bar, no parties, no drama. Just check late arrivals in and keep the lobby tidy until morning. The pay was good. The manager said it was low contact, the kind of shift where you can finish a podcast and still be paid like you did something heroic. I said yes before my better instincts could talk me out of it. The hotel sat off a service road, tucked behind a row of warehouses and a half-lit parking structure. A place you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. The sign out front glowed a faded blue. Not broken, just tired. The lobby looked clean enough, but in that sterile way that makes you feel like you're the only living organism in the room. Too much polished tile, too much reflective glass, too much quiet. There was a faint scent of lemon cleaner and something older underneath. Dust in vents, old carpet fibers, the stale sweat of people who slept badly. The evening manager, Darren, met me behind the desk. He handed me a name tag that still had the last temp's name on it, then laughed like that was funny. He showed me how to use the property system, where to find the spare key cards, where the breaker panel was, and which button called the security line. He spoke quickly, like if he moved fast enough, he wouldn't have to stay long. As he walked me through the guest registry, he kept glancing toward the elevators like he was expecting them to open. "You'll be fine," he said, and his voice was too practiced. "It's quiet, only a few rooms occupied. Flight delays sometimes bring people in around 2 or 3. You just check them in, swipe the card, smile, and that's it." I asked him about the camera system. He pointed to the monitors in the back office. 4 feeds: lobby, parking lot, elevator hallway, and the service corridor leading to a door marked staff only. The last one caught my attention because it was the only corridor with no carpet, just concrete and exposed pipes. The lighting was harsh, and the camera view looked slightly off, like the lens had been smudged. "What's down there?" I asked. Darren didn't look at the monitor. "Storage, laundry access, mechanical room," he said. "You won't need it." I nodded, then saw the elevator hallway feed flicker for half a second. Tiny static distortion, then normal again. Darren's jaw tightened like he noticed too. He pretended he didn't. He gave me one last instruction before leaving. "If anyone asks for a room change after midnight, don't move them to the 4th floor." He said it casually, like it was about plumbing, but his eyes were too serious. "Why not?" I asked. Darren's lips pressed together. "Maintenance is doing ongoing work up there," he said. "Just tell them it's closed." I almost joked about hotels always having maintenance, but something in his posture told me not to. He grabbed his jacket and left. The automatic doors opened and closed behind him with a soft sigh, and suddenly I was alone in a lobby full of reflections. The first couple of hours were boring, exactly as promised. I checked in one late couple around 11:30. Tired, polite, barely looked up from their phones. I printed receipts, made small talk, watched them disappear into the elevator. I tidied the coffee station, wiped counters, and sat behind the desk with the registry open on the screen. The building hummed, the air conditioning cycled. The vending machine in the corner made a low mechanical noise like a sleeping animal. Around 1:40 a.m., the lobby phone rang. Not the front desk line. This was the internal phone that connected to rooms. The screen flashed, 4. Something. The last digits didn't display, like the system couldn't decide what to show. I picked up. "Front desk, how can I help you?" There was a pause, then a voice. Male, calm, too calm. "My key doesn't work," he said. That happens, I replied automatically. What room are you in, sir? Another pause as if he was reading it off something. 412, he said. My eyes drifted to the registry. Room 412 was empty, not vacant but dirty, not out of service, just empty. No arrival, no guest name. The hair on my arms rose anyway. I'm sorry, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Can I have your last name? I'll pull up the reservation. The voice didn't answer immediately. When it didn't sound like a name. It sounded like someone exhaling into the receiver. Then he said, You already have it. I swallowed. Sir, I don't see a reservation for 412. Are you sure about the room number? I'm standing in front of it, he said. The light is on. The hallway is cold. I forced a small laugh. The kind you do when you want the other person to feel like everything is normal. Okay, come down to the desk and I'll make you a new key. What name is the reservation under? Another pause, then quietly, Don't make me come down. My fingers tightened around the phone. Sir, I can't issue a key without a name. The line crackled softly. I heard a faint sound behind his voice, like distant elevator chimes, but wrong. Slower, stretched out. Then he said, It's after midnight. You know the rule. Just bring it. What rule? I asked before I could stop myself. He didn't answer. He just repeated slower, like teaching someone. Bring it to the 4th floor. My chest felt tight. Darren's warning came back. Don't move people to the 4th floor. Maintenance. Closed. He'd said it too confidently for it to be a lie about construction. I stared at the elevator hallway. The feed was normal. No one visible. I'm sorry, I said. The 4th floor is closed tonight. I can assign you a different room. The line went silent long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then the voice returned, closer and colder. You shouldn't say no. The call ended. I stared at the phone, then at the registry, then at the cameras. The lobby camera showed me alone behind the desk, a small figure in a big polished space. The elevator hallway was empty. The parking lot was still. The service corridor camera flickered again, just a flutter of static. I told myself it was a prank call, maybe a drunk guest trying to get a free upgrade, maybe someone in the building messing with the system. Hotels attract weirdness, but my mouth tasted metallic, and I kept thinking about one detail. He'd said the hallway was cold. That's not the kind of thing people say when they're joking. At 2:07 a.m., the elevator dinged. The doors opened. No one stepped out. The doors stayed open for a moment, then closed, then reopened, as if the elevator couldn't decide whether it had been called. I watched the elevator hallway feed. The camera showed the doors opening and closing like a slow blink. No person, no shadow crossing the threshold. Then the elevator stopped doing it, and the lobby returned to quiet. I stood, walked closer to the elevator, and listened. The air near the doors felt slightly cooler, but that could have been my imagination. I pressed the call button. Nothing happened. The button light didn't even come on. I went back to the desk, uneasy, and checked the system logs. There was a record of a call placed from room 412 to the front desk at 1:40 a.m., which meant it wasn't just a random caller. The system believed room 412 existed and had an active line. My hands started to sweat. I decided to go into the back office and check the keycard inventory. If someone had made a card for 412 earlier, it might show in the system. The office was small, dim, and smelled faintly of old paper. The monitors glowed in the dark. I pulled up the keycard log. It showed the last card issued for room 412, 2 years ago. The guest name field was blank. The clerk initials field was blank. The timestamp was 3:14 a.m. My stomach dropped. 2 years ago, 3:14 a.m. The exact sort of time when normal people aren't awake unless they have a reason. I looked up at the monitors again. The service corridor feed wasn't showing the corridor anymore. It was black, not camera off, not no signal. Just black, like the lens had been covered. Then, slowly, the black faded and the corridor returned. The light in the corridor flickered once, and I saw something at the far end near the staff-only door. Something tall and still, like a person standing perfectly upright. The camera was too grainy to show detail. I leaned closer. The figure didn't move. I blinked. The feed flickered. When it returned, the corridor was empty. I stepped back from the monitor, heart pounding. I told myself it was a glitch, a compression artifact, a shadow, but my brain couldn't accept how person-shaped it had been. How still. The lobby phone rang again. The internal line. This time the display showed clearly. 412. I didn't want to answer, not because I was scared of a voice, but because answering felt like participating, like acknowledging something that wanted to be acknowledged. But I also couldn't ignore a guest call, not without risking my job. I picked up. "Front desk," I said. The voice came immediately. "You took too long." "I'm sorry," I said, and hated how automatic it sounded. "I can't locate a reservation under 412. Please come downstairs and we can sort it out." A slow inhale, then, "You looked at the cameras." My throat went dry. "Excuse me." "You saw the corridor," the voice said. "You're curious. That's why you'll come." I forced myself to sound firm. "Sir, if you're on the property and you can't access your room, I can send security to assist. I'm not allowed to leave the desk unattended." A pause, then softer. "There is no security tonight." I froze. "How do you know that?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Take a key card, bring it. If you don't, I'll open the elevator myself." The line went dead again. My mouth felt numb. I stared at the elevator. The doors were closed. The lobby was quiet. I looked at my phone. No missed calls except the two. I checked the staff schedule pinned behind the desk. Security had been listed for overnight, but the name was crossed out and replaced with temp front. Me. My skin prickled. Darren hadn't mentioned that. Or maybe he had and I hadn't paid attention. Either way, the voice was right. I could have called the police, but what would I say? A hotel room that shouldn't exist is calling me. They'd send someone, sure, but they'd treat me like an anxious worker, not a victim, and I didn't want to bring outsiders into something that felt contained. I decided to do the simplest thing: verify that room 412 was actually on the 4th floor. I knew it should be. Hotel rooms follow patterns. But Darren's warning about the 4th floor made me think maybe the entire floor was locked off. If it was, then the call had to be a prank using the internal system. That would mean someone was already in the building. That was a different kind of danger. So I did what night workers always do when the choice is between fear and action. I moved. I printed a master report for the shift, left a note behind the desk that said, "Back in 5 minutes?" and grabbed the master key card. I told myself it was fine. It was after 2 a.m. No one would come in, and if someone did, they'd wait. I stepped into the elevator. The interior mirror reflected me in harsh light. I hated how alone I looked. I pressed 4. The elevator started up with a soft, mechanical groan. As it rose, I watched the panel. The numbers lit normally. 2, 3. Then the elevator slowed. The panel didn't show 4 yet. It stopped between floors with a faint shudder, like it had hit resistance. The lights flickered. My stomach flipped. I pressed the door open button. Nothing. I pressed lobby. Nothing. The panel felt unresponsive, like the buttons had turned into plastic shapes. Then the elevator intercom crackled. A whisper seeped through. Too close, too intimate. "You came." My throat tightened. "Who is this?" I said, and my voice sounded thin. The whisper didn't answer directly. "Don't look into the mirror," it said. My eyes had already drifted toward the mirror by instinct. I forced them away. My breath came fast. "What do you want?" the intercom hissed. Then in a tone almost polite, "Bring the card to 412. The elevator jerked again. The panel suddenly lit 4. The doors open. The fourth-floor hallway was darker than the others. Not fully dark, but the lighting was off, dim and uneven. The carpet was the same pattern as downstairs, but looked older, stained in places like water damage. The air smelled colder, damp, like a basement that had been painted over. The temperature drop was immediate enough that my skin reacted. I stepped out. The elevator doors stayed open behind me longer than normal. I could hear a faint buzzing from the overhead lights, like a swarm trapped in glass. Room numbers ran along the wall. 401, 402, 403. The hallway seemed longer than it should have been. The far end disappeared into shadow where a light had burned out. I walked, counting doors. 408, 409, 410, 411, 412 was there. The door looked normal. Same cheap wood, same number plaque. But the plaque was slightly crooked, as if someone had touched it too many times. The door frame had faint scratch marks near the handle, long lines that looked like someone had dragged something sharp down the paint. I listened. No sound from inside. I knocked once. "Front desk," I said, voice low. Nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. I took the master key card and swiped. The lock beeped red. I swiped again. Red. My heart hammered. The voice had said his key didn't work. Now mine didn't either. I swiped a third time. The lock beeped. Green. It clicked. The door swung open slightly. Cold air breathed out from the gap. Not AC cold, deep, stale cold, like air that hadn't been exchanged in years. I should have closed the door and walked away. I should have let the alarm in my body take over. But curiosity and fear can lock together into a single impulse. Find the source, end it. I pushed the door open. The room was not normal. It looked like a hotel room, but the proportions felt wrong. The ceiling looked slightly higher. The space behind the bed seemed too deep. The curtains were closed, but there was a faint gray light seeping through as if it were dawn, even though it was still night. The air smelled like wet paper and old electricity. And the mirror above the dresser, there was no mirror in rooms on lower floors. But this one had a large mirror, perfectly clean, reflecting the room with unnatural sharpness. I didn't step far inside. I stayed near the door, ready to retreat. "Hello," I said. No answer. Then the bathroom light clicked on by itself. I froze. The bathroom door was half open. Light spilled out onto the carpet. I could hear a faint dripping, like a faucet not fully closed. I backed out one step, reaching behind me for the door handle. The door behind me closed, not slammed, not dramatic. Just closed gently, like someone behind it had pushed it until it latched. I grabbed the handle and pulled. Locked. My MasterCard was on the inside now, but the handle wouldn't turn. The latch felt jammed, like the door had no intention of opening. My mouth went dry. "Okay," I said out loud, as if talking could make it rational. "This is a malfunction. I'm leaving." The intercom inside the room crackled, not the elevator intercom. The room phone on the nightstand lit up, although no one touched it. Static hissed from the speaker, then a voice, close, calm, the same voice as before. "You're inside now," it said. "That's better." My chest felt tight. "Open the door," I said, and my voice betrayed me. "No," it replied. "You came to fix the key." The bathroom dripping stopped. The bathroom light turned off. And then in the dark gap of the bathroom doorway, something moved. Not a full figure stepping out, but a shift, like a shadow repositioning itself. I forced myself not to look too long. My heart pounded in my ears. "What are you?" I whispered. The voice replied, almost amused. "A guest." I swallowed. "There is no reservation for this room." A pause, then there was. The room's temperature dropped further. My breath began to show faintly. The air pressed against my skin. Then the mirror caught my eye again. It reflected me standing by the door, pale, tense. But behind me in the reflection, a second shape stood near the bathroom. Tall, thin, head slightly tilted like it was listening. I didn't turn around. The voice whispered, pleased. "You saw me?" "No," I said quickly. "No, I didn't." "Don't lie," it said. "The mirror doesn't lie. People do." My fingers shook as I reached for my radio clipped to my belt. I pressed the button. Front desk to. The radio emitted only static. No response, no channel tone, just dead noise. The voice chuckled softly through the room phone. "No calls," it said. "No help." The mirror reflection showed the tall shape take a slow step forward. Still, I didn't turn around, because something in my instincts screamed that if I turned, I'd confirm it. I'd make it solid. I reached into my pocket for the spare key card I'd brought. My hands were clumsy. I held the card up like an offering. "I can make you a new key," I said, hating how my voice shook, "but you have to let me out." The voice paused, then said, "Slide it under the bathroom door." My stomach turned. "Why?" "So I can test it," it replied, patient, like it had all the time in the world. The bathroom door was half open. There was no gap beneath it, but the request felt like a trap anyway. "I'll leave it on the counter," I said quickly. "No!" the voice snapped, and the tone changed, still calm, but now sharp. "Under the door." The mirror reflection showed the tall shape move again, closer to me now, though in the real room I could still see only the bathroom doorway and the bed and the closed curtains. I couldn't breathe properly. Then the room phone spoke again, but the voice wasn't the same. It changed to something I recognized with a sick lurch of my stomach. It sounded like Darren. "Miles?" it said gently, like he was calling from the lobby. "You okay up there?" My blood ran cold. "Darren?" The voice continued, warm and convincing. "I forgot to tell you, don't go to the 4th floor. Come back down." My brain wanted to believe it so badly that for a second I almost did. Then I remembered. Darren had left hours ago. He wasn't here. And even if he were, he wouldn't call my name through the room phone. The voice softened like it knew I was resisting. "Just open the door," it said, still in Darren's tone. "It's locked from the outside. I can help." My hands trembled. I stared at the door handle. For a moment, I considered trying the latch again. But I knew if I moved toward it, the thing in the mirror would be behind me when I turned. The voice suddenly dropped the Darren imitation and returned to its original tone, colder. "Stop searching for the real voice. It doesn't matter. You're here now." The bathroom light flickered once. In the mirror reflection, the tall figure was now very close, right behind me, head angled toward my ear as if it wanted to whisper directly. I felt a pressure near my neck, like cold breath without air. I made a decision without fully understanding it. I would disrupt whatever system this was. In every horror story, the mistake is trying to play along. So I did the opposite. I grabbed the room phone and ripped the cord out of the wall. Static shrieked, then cut. The room went silent. For 1 second, the temperature lifted slightly, like the building exhaled. Then the mirror reflection smiled. Not a visible smile, not teeth, just the sense of a smile, like the shape's face was learning an expression. The bathroom door creaked wider. I backed up until my shoulders hit the wall near the door. My mind raced. If I couldn't open the door, I needed another exit. The window was behind thick curtains. I didn't want to touch them. Mirrors, reflections, it had said. The curtain fabric might reflect faintly in the mirror. Everything reflected in some way. I reached down and pulled my key ring from my belt. The heavy ring of keys for storage, maintenance, staff doors. Metal, cold, real. The mirror reflection tilted its head again, as if curious. I threw the key ring into the bathroom doorway. The keys clattered loudly against tile. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the bathroom light flickered rapidly, like a strobe about to burn out. And a sound came from the bathroom. Not a voice, not a scream, but a low, irritated hum, like electrical equipment protesting. The door handle behind me clicked. I spun and grabbed it. This time it turned. The door opened. Cold air from the hallway rushed in like freedom. I stumbled out, nearly falling. The hallway lights buzzed. The carpet felt normal under my shoes again. I didn't stop to look back. I pulled the door closed behind me. The room number plaque, 412, was straight now, perfectly aligned, like it had never been touched. I ran down the hallway toward the elevator. My lungs burned. The elevator doors were closed. I slammed the call button. Nothing. I slammed again. The hallway lights flickered. The air grew colder. The elevator dinged softly. The doors opened. Inside, the elevator car was empty. The mirror at the back reflected the fourth-floor hallway, but in the reflection, the hallway looked longer, darker, like the perspective was wrong, like it extended into a place that wasn't on the blueprint. I stepped inside anyway because the alternative was standing in that hallway. My hands shook as I pressed lobby. The elevator doors closed. The car didn't move. The panel lights didn't change. The intercom crackled. That same voice, soft and satisfied. "You broke the call." My throat tightened. "Let me out." "You came to fix the key," it whispered. "Now you'll learn how keys work." The panel lights flickered. The 4 button went dark. A new light came on. It wasn't labeled, just a pale square, like a button that had been sanded down. The elevator began to rise. My stomach dropped. "No, stop!" The panel display didn't show 5, or 6, or 7. It showed a blank. Then slowly it displayed 0. The elevator shuddered. The air turned colder. My breath fogged. The doors opened, not onto a hallway, onto a service corridor, the same concrete corridor from the camera feed. Exposed pipes, harsh lighting, the staff-only door at the far end. I stepped out, confused, and the elevator doors closed behind me without me touching anything. I ran back to the doors and pressed the call button. Nothing. I pounded the metal. Nothing. The corridor was quiet except for a distant dripping somewhere, slow and measured. The kind of dripping you hear in basements. It smelled like damp metal and old insulation. Then the staff-only door at the far end clicked. Just a click. The handle moved down slightly, then back up, like someone testing it. I backed away, heart racing. The door clicked again. This time it opened a fraction. A thin line of darkness appeared. And from that darkness, a voice, very soft, spoke my name. Miles. My skin went ice cold. It wasn't the same voice anymore. It sounded like someone I knew. Not Darren, someone older. Someone from my past. My father's voice. "Miles," it said again, gentle. "Come here." My eyes burned. The instinct to respond, to move toward a familiar voice, was strong enough to make my legs twitch. But I forced myself to stay. I whispered, "That's not real." The voice paused, then changed again. Now my mother's voice, tired and worried. "Miles, please." I felt nauseous. My hands shook uncontrollably. The corridor lights flickered once. I looked down and saw something that made me freeze harder than any voice. On the concrete floor near my feet were faint, wet footprints, bare footprints. They pointed toward me, as if someone had walked out of that door, stood inches from me, then vanished. I swallowed and backed up until my back hit the wall near the elevator doors. I checked my pockets for my phone. It was gone. I realized then, my key ring, my radio, everything was missing. Like the building had stripped me down to the one thing it wanted. Me. The staff-only door opened wider. Not fully. Just enough to suggest someone could squeeze through. And in the gap, I saw something pale, like a hand, or the suggestion of one, resting on the inside edge of the door. I couldn't tell if it was reaching out or holding itself back. The voice whispered, in my own voice now, "You wanted to see!" The elevator doors behind me dinged and opened. I spun. The elevator car was there again, waiting. The panel inside glowed softly. The unlabeled pale button was still lit. I stepped into the elevator because I didn't want to stay in that corridor with the door that knew my family's voices. The elevator doors closed. The car began to descend this time. The panel display flickered. 3, 2, 1, lobby. The doors opened onto the bright, normal lobby. Warm air, coffee smell, the illusion of safety. I staggered out and ran behind the desk. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I pulled up the camera feeds. The service corridor cameras showed nothing unusual. Empty corridor, closed staff-only door, no footprints. The elevator hallway cameras showed the 4th floor elevator doors closed, no movement. I opened the registry. Room 412 now displayed, occupied. Guest name, Miles. Check-in time, 03:14 a.m. I stared at it until my vision blurred. Then the lobby phone rang again. Internal line. I didn't answer. It rang a second time. I didn't answer. A third time. Then the front desk printer activated by itself and printed a single sheet. It was a guest folio. Room 412. Guest Miles. Balance $0. Status checked in. At the bottom in small text, a note. Keycard required for exit after 3:14 a.m. My mouth went dry. Exit after 3:14 a.m.? Like the building had its own rule for leaving? Like I'd missed a deadline? I looked at the time on my computer, 3:16. The lobby doors, the automatic sliding doors, opened slightly, then closed again. Opened, closed, like they were malfunctioning. I walked toward them cautiously. When they opened, I tried to step through. The doors closed on my shoulder with surprising force, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to stop me. I stepped back. They opened again. I tried again. They closed again. It felt intentional. Like the door sensor was seeing me as something that shouldn't leave. I returned behind the desk, breathing fast. The elevator dinged softly in the lobby. The doors opened. A man stepped out. For a moment, relief washed over me. Another person, a witness, a normal guest. Then I saw his face. It was blank in a way that made my stomach turn. Not featureless, but unfocused, like his face couldn't decide what to be, like a photo that hadn't finished loading. His eyes were fixed on the front desk. He walked toward me slowly. I forced my voice steady. "Sir, can I help you?" He stopped at the desk. He didn't blink. He said very softly, "Your key doesn't work." I felt my hands go numb. I'm staff," I said. "I don't have a room." He tilted his head slightly, echoing that same gesture I'd seen in the mirror reflection. "You're checked in," he said. I glanced down at the system. The registry still showed my name in 412. The man leaned closer. The air around him smelled like damp concrete. He whispered, "Bring the key card." I realized then what it wanted. It wanted me to complete the loop, make the key, bring it to 412, confirm the check-in. It wanted me to become the kind of guest who never checks out. I reached under the desk and grabbed a blank key card. My hands moved on their own because fear makes you obey patterns. I slid it through the encoder, typed 412, and pressed Issue. The machine beeped. The key card light flashed green, a working key. I held it up, and the man's eyes followed it like hunger. Then, with the small remaining part of my mind that still belonged to me, I remembered what had helped upstairs. Disruption. Breaking the expected action. I snapped the key card in half. The plastic cracked sharply. The man's face twitched like pain. The lobby lights flickered. The man's mouth opened slightly, and a sound came out that wasn't a voice. More like air being pulled through a vent. Then very softly the voice came from behind the man, from the elevator. Wrong. The man's head turned toward the elevator like a puppet responding to a string. The elevator doors were open again, empty, waiting. The man stepped backward, slowly, as if being reeled in. I didn't wait to see more. I ran behind the desk, grabbed the emergency key override box, metal, bolted to the wall. I smashed the glass with the edge of a stapler, cut my finger, and grabbed the fire exit key inside. I sprinted to the stairwell door, not the lobby doors, not the elevator. The stairwell door was normally locked from the lobby side. I shoved the key in. It turned. The door opened. Cold air rushed out. I ran down the stairs 2 at a time, my shoes echoing on concrete. My breath came in sharp bursts. My cut finger left small smears on the railing. At the ground level, the stairwell exit led to the side of the building near the dumpsters. I pushed the door. It opened.